Hi, everyone. My name is Heather, and I'm a liaison examiner at the LTSA. And today I am joined by William, who is a member of the myLTSA technical support team, and Shannon, the deputy administrator of the Land Owner Transparency Registry. Please note during the webinar, for anyone who has questions regarding system functionality and the forms, please use the chat box to ask your questions. Some will be answered in the chat, but our Q&A period at the end of the webinar is where most will be answered. If you have questions regarding specific policy or circumstances, please use the email loader@ltsa.ca. For those new to Teams, please click on the chat icon for using the chat section. There's also about a 10 to 20 second delay between what is presented and what you see on screen. And due to some recent updates, what you see in the webinar may be slightly different from what you see when LOTR goes live. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Land Owner Transparency Registry webinar. I will also refer to the registry by the acronym LOTR throughout the presentation. This webinar is for all myLTSA enterprise users who electronically file applications with the LTSA and wish to learn more about filings under the Land Owner Transparency Act, which I will refer to by the acronym LOTA. LOTA comes into force on Monday, November 30th, 2020. In this session, you will learn what are transparency declarations and transparency reports and how to create them in myLTSA, how to e-sign and pay LOTR fees, and how to add a LOTR filing to your land title application. Beginning November 30th, 2020, LOTR requires that at any time an application is made to register an interest in BC's Land Title Registry, a transparency declaration must be filed to the LOTR administrator by each transferee. A transferee that is a reporting body must also complete and file a transparency report, setting out information about the reporting body and its interest holders. A transparency declaration is filed by each transferee and indicates whether the transferee is a reporting body, as defined in LOTA. If the transferee is not a reporting body, then the transparency declaration is all that's required. If the transferee is a reporting body, they must also file a transparency report. These documents do not form part of the records of the Land Title Office and instead are maintained in LOTR by the administrator in accordance with rules established in LOTA. To begin today, I will start on the myLTSA homepage. I will click on Submissions and choose Land Owner Transparency Registry. There are three groups of services available. The first is the LOTR filing service, where transparency declarations and reports are created. The second is the LOTR search. This function becomes available April 30th, 2021. And the last heading is the Other Services section, where you can find the Section 40, Application to Omit, Section 42, Application to Correct, and the Section 17.1, Notice to the Administrator. The first part of our webinar will be under the LOTR Filing Service heading, where I will demonstrate the Transparency Declaration, and William will later demonstrate the Transparency Report. To start, I will click on Go to LOTR Filings. From the LOTR dashboard, you can view all transparency records, both active and filed. All forms under the Active tab have not yet been filed to LOTR. The Filed tab contains all the LOTR forms that have been submitted to the registry. I will be creating, my apologies, I'll back up for you. I will be creating our declaration by clicking on Create Transparency Declaration at the top. To navigate through each section of the Transparency Declaration, use the Continue and/or Back button found at the bottom of each page. This will take you through the entire form, step by step. To skip to another section, use the left navigation pane to quickly jump between the sections. Create Declaration, Transferees, Certifier Information, Validation, and finally, Execution Copy and e-sign. At any time, you can access the help content and guidance with the forms by clicking on the tooltips, the question marks. I will start the form by adding the file reference. Each file reference, it will be inputted by the legal professional filling out the form, and it is something that is unique to them. To get to the next field, I'll press Tab or use my cursor. Add the parcel identifier, also known as the PID, associated with the document. If there is more than one PID associated, click on Add another PID. Now I have the option to add another. I can also remove the PID by simply clicking Delete PID. I now have one parcel identifier for my transparency declaration. If there is no PID, you will choose the No PID box. This option may only be selected if the parcel has not yet been assigned a PID. In this case, you would manually enter another identifier or a legal description of the property by selecting the Add Manual Entry land. Examples may be a subdivision where PIDs are not yet available or a Crown grant. Under the tab Add Manual Entry land could also be titles and charges that are stored in the paper-based AFB or AFC books, as well as the Vancouver Street leases. When completing each section, you have the option to validate or save progress. If I remove my file reference and click Validate, the error message, File Reference is Missing, appears in red. Add the file reference again and click Validate. We can see the banner at the top, Validation Successful. At any point, we can save the entries we have made by clicking on Save Progress. We will see the banner at the top, Details Saved Successfully in green. Clicking on Continue will take us to the next page, the same as using the left navigation bar. Next, complete information on the transferee section, with the options being individual or corporation. Today, I will choose individual. I will enter the last name and the given name. Answering yes to the question, is this transferee a reporting body, will create our transparency report. In this example, the transferee is not a reporting body, so I will choose no to this question. If there is more than one transferee, click on Add Another Transferee. Again, I will choose individual, add the last name and the given name, and no to the question, is this transferee a reporting body? I will now hit Continue. The certifier is an individual who is certifying the document on behalf of the transferee or reporting body. An example of a certifier may be the transferee, such as Peter Parker in this example, or could be a director for a relevant corporation or a trustee for a relevant trust. But there are many examples of who the certifier may be depending on the specific example. The certifier is someone who has knowledge of the matters in the transparency declaration and actual authority to certify the declaration on behalf of the transferee or reporting body. I will fill in the last name, the given name, and the certification date. Using the drop-down, I will choose the name of who they are certifying on behalf of. We have 2 transferees, therefore we need a certifier for both. Click on Add another certifier. We will enter the given name and date, but leave the last name blank so you can see the error message on the validation page. Use the drop-down, we'll choose the second transferee and hit Continue. The banner at the top of the verification page tells us there are errors in red and must be resolved before we can e-sign. And if there are warnings in orange, they could affect the completeness or correctness of the form, but can still be e-signed if present. As I scroll down the validation page, I can see the only page that has an error is the certifier information. The last name states missing in red, as it is a mandatory field. I will click on Go to Page in the certifier section, and this takes me directly to that page. I will put in the missing information, the last name, and hit Continue to return to the validation page. I can see the success banner at the top, so I can now hit Continue to proceed to print, sign, and finally digitally sign the completed transparency declaration. The transparency declaration will have the draft PDF generated on this page. Note at the top left, our status for our declaration is now in draft. Scrolling to the bottom of the page gives me the ability to e-sign. I will enter the JuraCert password, accept the certification statement by clicking the box, and click e-sign. Now I have e-signed the transparency declaration. We will note at the top the status has changed from drafted to e-signed. There's an option to edit at both the top and the bottom of the page. This would revoke the e-signature. So if you need to edit the declaration, you would also need to get the new declaration re-signed and then re-add the digital signature. LOTR fees must be paid prior to submission. So I'll click on Pay LOTR Fees and Pay to continue. Once LOTR fees are paid, I will get confirmation that fees are processed, payment is successful, and the billing receipt is being sent to myLTSA inbox. The status of my declaration has now changed again from e-signed to ready for submission, which means I can associate the LOTR filing when we submit our land title document. I will click on View LOTR Filings in the top right corner to return to our LOTR dashboard. The final step will be to submit the declaration with the land title documents. However, at this point in the webinar, William will now demonstrate the transparency report and when it will need to be filed. After this, we will complete the filings with the land title submission.
Thank you, Heather. Hello, everyone. In this portion of the webinar, you will learn when a transparency report needs to be filed. When a relevant corporation, trustee, or partnership is registered on a land title as the owner of a property, a transparency report must be filed. This is because there may be an interest in land being held for the benefit of another. An interest in land is defined in LOTA as any of the following: an estate in fee simple, a life estate in land, a right to occupy land under a lease that has a term of more than 10 years, or a right under an agreement for sale to occupy the land or require a transfer of an estate in fee simple. A transparency report may be filed on its own under certain circumstances, but usually it's filed along with a transparency declaration when an interest in land is transferred to a reporting body. There are 3 circumstances where a standalone transparency report must be filed. 1. When LOTA comes into force on November 30th, 2020, existing reporting bodies with an interest in land will have until November 30th, 2021 to file an initial transparency report. 2. If a previous transparency report was filed by a reporting body, but contains errors or no longer discloses the current interest holders. For example, a former reporting body, such as a corporation, has a new director who holds 10% or more of its issued shares. A notice to administrators should also be filed if former interest holders are no longer relevant. 3. A determination of incapacity has been made in respect of an interest holder or settler. A standalone transparency report can be filed from the LOTR dashboard by clicking on the Create Transparency Report button. Generally, these standalone filings will be less common than joint filings. Property information is the first section of the report, and it is where the legal professional enters a file reference and any relevant data such as the title number or charge number. Please note that there will be an option here to submit an update to a previously filed transparency report if there has been a change of interest holders or determination of incapacity regarding an interest holder or settler. In this case, I will select No and enter the title number. For a joint filing with a transparency declaration, this section is already pre-completed with information carried over from the associated declaration, and this data can only be changed from the declaration form itself. The reporting body primary identification section is where the initial information about the reporting body is entered. The type of information required will depend on the selection made. For relevant corporation, information must be provided for the name and address of the corporation, head office location if different from the registered office address, and jurisdiction of incorporation. For a trustee of a relevant trust, it is necessary to indicate whether the trustee is a corporation or an individual, and if it's an individual, to provide their name, citizenship, and residency status in Canada. For partner of a relevant partnership, it is necessary to specify whether the partner is a corporation or an individual and provide all pertinent information as described in the previous examples. In the reporting body additional information section, more detailed information about the relevant corporation, trust, or partnership is required. This may include the partnership number or identifying number depending on the reporting body. If the reporting body is a trustee of a relevant trust, this is where information about the settler is entered, whether it's an individual or a corporation. As with the previous section, information is entered for the settler's name, citizenship, residency status, date of birth, and address. Additionally, it is necessary to indicate here whether a determination of incapacity has been made in respect of the settler, whether the reporting body had provided written notice to the settler about the information being submitted to LOTR, and if the reporting body was able to obtain and confirm the accuracy of all the information about the settler. More than one settler can be entered by clicking the Add Settler button. In the interest holder section, if there are no individuals who are interest holders of a relevant corporation, partnership, or trust, select No and explain the reason in the field provided. If there are interest holders to report, select yes and fill in the necessary fields, including the name, principal residence, date of birth, last known address, social insurance number if they have one, individual tax number if they have one, and residency status for the purpose of the Income Tax Acts. In this section, it is also necessary to indicate how and when the individual became an interest holder with the options below. And once again, questions about the determination of incapacity, accuracy of information, and delivery of written notice need to be answered here. If more than one interest holders exists, simply click the Add Interest Holder button located near the bottom of this section. Next is the certifier information section, which needs to be completed after all reporting bodies have signed a transparency report. As Heather stated earlier, the certifier must have actual knowledge of the matters and be authorized to certify on behalf of the transferee who now happens to be a reporting body. At least one certifier is required to sign for each reporting body. So when multiple transparency reports are involved, each must be certified separately before they can be e-signed by the legal professional. The validation section summarizes the information entered and displays errors and warnings to indicate missing or invalid information on the form. If there are errors found, click on the Go To page link at the top of the summarize section in question and make the necessary correction. Finally, the purpose of the last section is to print the execution copy and e-sign the document. To print the execution copy, click the Download Print button above the preview window. To e-sign the document, scroll down to the lower portion of the page and select the available digital certificate, then enter the JurisCert password. To complete the process, the legal professional who's filling out the form must agree to the certification statement below the signature field by selecting the checkbox. It is then ready to have the electronic signature applied. After e-signing is complete, the next step is to register the transparency record. For a standalone report, it does not get filed with a land title package, but a filing fee does need to be paid upon registration of the transparency report using the Submit button at the bottom of the execution copy and e-sign page. Since this report is linked to a declaration, it has to be filed with a land title package. All forms must be signed, and the LOTR fees are processed altogether on the linked transparency declaration. The status of all forms must be ready for submission before the associated land title documents can be registered with it on the Land Title Registry. I will now pass the presentation back to Heather to show how to associate a land title filing with a LOTR filing reference.
Thank you, William. The last part of our webinar is to connect the transparency declaration or the report with the land title submission. There we go. In this example, I have a package with a Form A and a PTT ready for submission. Notice there's a new LOTR reference tab at the top right. I will click on the tab to add the LOTR filing. For the land title registrations that are excluded from filing a transparency declaration, choose the box Excluded from LOTA and the appropriate drop-down. This example is not excluded, so we will enter the transparency declaration ID in the LOTR filing number field, and we will click Add. I will now go to the Submit Package tab and Submit Package. The transparency declaration is now connected with the LTO submission. I will hit submit to complete. If no LOTR filing reference is provided at the time of an applicable land title filing, an error will occur requesting that you confirm the LOTR filing reference, and the submission will not be able to go further until there is one attached. A LOTR filing must be signed, certified, and have the LOTR fees paid before attaching to the land title documents to submit to the Land Title Registry. That is the end of the demonstration today. Thank you for attending the LOTR System webinar. Please be sure to keep an eye on the landtransparency.ca website for reference materials. New content is being developed regularly. I would also like to confirm that we will be sending a Q&A, additional resources, and a short survey to everyone on this webinar. We will be hosting additional sessions of the same webinar in the upcoming months. It will also be made available as an online video for those who wish to review it in more detail. Finally, all legal professionals are reminded to claim the CPD credit with CLE BC. Thank you. At this time, we will answer all questions relating to the system functionality and the forms. If you have questions regarding specific policy or circumstances, please use the email LOTR@LTSA.ca.